My name is Ryan Carter. I'm 38 years old, a Marine who just returned home from Kandahar 2 weeks ago after an 8-month deployment. I thought the worst was behind me, but I was wrong. What I faced on the battlefield was brutal, but nothing compared to what awaited me in a quiet ultrasound room in Phoenix, Arizona. I still remember sitting there, sterile white walls closing in, the scent of disinfectant sharp in my nose. My wife, Sophie, lay on the examination table with her belly smeared in cool gel. The screen flickered as Dr. Alan Mitchell moved the probe across her stomach. His hand trembled as though he had just seen something unholy. The man had been practicing medicine for decades, certificates framed neatly behind him. But in that moment, his face drained of color. He glanced at me, then back at the screen, and his words cut deeper than any bullet ever had. "Mr. Carter, I need you to step outside, and you might want to call a lawyer." I froze. My mind replayed his words on loop. Sophie's eyes darted between us, confusion plastered across her face, her voice tight. "Is something wrong with the baby?" I forced my voice to remain steady, military training kicking in. "Doctor, what exactly are you saying?" He wiped the sweat off his forehead and lowered his tone. "The baby looks fine, but the measurements show 32 weeks of development." I felt the air sucked out of the room. 32 weeks. I repeated the number silently, calculating in my head. 32 weeks ago, I was thousands of miles away in Afghanistan, loading gear onto a transport plane, sleeping in tents with sandstorms rattling the walls, dodging gunfire. 32 weeks ago, there was no possible way I could have conceived a child with my wife. Sophie kept smiling, still pretending everything was normal, but I was staring straight at the truth. The math didn't lie. I looked at her, really looked. The way she'd been checking her phone constantly since I returned. The way she called this pregnancy a beautiful surprise. The way she insisted we schedule the ultrasound when I was available. She wanted me here for this moment. She wanted me to believe this was our baby. The realization hit, like cold steel in my chest. I thought back to the beginning. I met Sophie 6 years ago at a barbecue in Tempe. She was a dental hygienist with a laugh that could fill an entire room. We married 3 years later in a small ceremony at her parents' church. Nothing fancy, but everything I thought I wanted. During my first 2 deployments, she was the picture of loyalty, sending care packages, writing letters, holding the fort at home. She was the kind of wife other Marines envied. When I left for Kandahar 8 months ago, she cried at the airport, real tears. She clung to me, whispering promises that she would wait. She even joked about starting pottery classes to keep herself busy. I believed her. But as the months dragged on, things shifted. The video calls turned shorter, the excuses more frequent. Evening classes, late nights, text messages that read like automated replies. At the time, I brushed it off. I told myself she was adjusting. Military wives had to build lives of their own to survive. Then, 2 weeks ago, I returned. She seemed different. She wore loose clothing, blamed her weight gain on stress, said she hadn't been feeling well. And then came the bombshell. She was pregnant. About 10 weeks along, she said through happy tears. 10 weeks. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to feel the joy. I told myself maybe this deployment was worth it because I came home to the promise of a family. But now, staring at that ultrasound screen, the truth was blinding. The baby wasn't 10 weeks. The baby was 32. Dr. Mitchell looked at me, waiting for an explosion, maybe even violence. But I stayed calm, colder than ice. That's what training does. It locks your emotions away when chaos erupts. I stood, squared my shoulders, and looked at Sophie. This baby was conceived when I was in Afghanistan. Her face drained of color. She whispered, "That's not possible," but her hands trembled, her eyes avoiding mine. The act was over. I asked the doctor for copies of the report and left. Sophie scrambled to stop me, her voice breaking, but I walked out with the evidence. The drive home was suffocating. She babbled excuses. Maybe the machine was wrong. Maybe the files got mixed. But I didn't respond. My focus was razor sharp. At home, I looked out the window and saw our neighbor, Derek Lawson, tinkering with his motorcycle. A divorced construction worker, mid-40s, who'd been helping Sophie around the house while I was gone. My gut told me the truth before my mind could even piece it together. Later, I confronted her in the kitchen. How long have you been sleeping with Derek? The glass in her hand shattered on the tile. She denied it, called me insane, but her body language betrayed her. Finally, after I shoved receipts and records in her face, dinners, hotel stays, men's clothing she bought, she broke down. It started a month after you left, she admitted through tears. It wasn't supposed to happen. I was lonely, it just happened. 7 months. Practically my entire deployment. She'd been building this web of lies for months, hoping I'd never see the threads. I moved into a motel near base and contacted my lawyer, Thomas Reynolds, a fellow veteran who knew the reality of betrayal during service. He laid out the plan: DNA testing, documentation, divorce on grounds of adultery, reclaiming marital assets. It wasn't just strategy, it was survival. The DNA results confirmed what I already knew. 0 chance the child was mine. I had the ultrasound report, credit card statements, phone records, hotel receipts. All of it painted a damning picture. In court, Judge Maria Castillo didn't need convincing. The evidence was airtight. Sophie's lawyer tried to argue that the affair didn't matter, but the judge saw through it. She awarded me 65% of the assets, including the family home, and ordered Sophie to bear full responsibility for the pregnancy and child, as I had no biological connection. The gavel struck, finalizing the end of a marriage built on deception. Outside the courthouse, Sophie caught up to me, her belly round under a loose dress. "Ryan, I'm sorry," she said softly. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry." I looked at her, and for a brief moment, I remembered the woman I'd once loved. But then I remembered the lies, the betrayal, the months I spent fighting overseas while she built another life without me. "Sorry doesn't erase 8 months, I told her. And I walked away. In the months that followed, Sophie moved back to Ohio with her parents, pregnant and alone. Derek lost his job. Turns out being the guy who sleeps with a Marine's wife doesn't earn much respect in a defense-heavy community. Word spread, and he became an outcast. I sold the house eventually. Too many ghosts in those walls. I bought a smaller place near base, started over, focused on my own path. The deployment had taught me survival in war zones. Coming home taught me survival and betrayal. Some nights, I'd sit on my porch and imagine what life would have been if I had believed her lie. If I had raised another man's child, lived a life of deception, that version of me would have been broken beyond repair. Instead, I chose truth, even when it shattered everything. Because truth, no matter how brutal, gives you power. Lies only strip it away. And so here I am, scarred but standing. The war overseas didn't destroy me, but the war inside my own home nearly did. I learned one unshakable truth. Sometimes the strongest response to betrayal isn't anger or revenge. It's simply walking away, reclaiming your life, and refusing to live inside someone else's lie. If you've listened to my story and it struck a chord, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Stories of betrayal, survival, and hard truths that change lives. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, the truth will always set you free, even when it hurts.